Sponsored by DAMRONGKIAT, Sustainable Business Development in Harmony with the Environment and Society.
According to the Thai Rice Exporters Association, during the first quarter of 2012, Thailand exported 1.6 million metric tons of rice, worth more than 33.7 billion baht. Thai rice exports saw a decline in both volume and value when compared to the figures in the same period of 2011. The top 5 importers of Thai rice include Nigeria, Indonesia, Singapore, South Africa, and Japan.
Right, and exports of Thai rice are expected to fall from 10.7 million tons in 2011, just last year, to 8.5 million tons this year, 2012. One of the reasons is that India, Kunatakan, which is one of the major rice exporters and producers in the world, now India has turned to export white as well as boiled rice again.
And in the first half of the year, India has already replaced Thailand as the world's #1 rice exporter. The export volume of the kingdom has dropped by 45% approximately, making the country become the second biggest exporter, closely followed by Vietnam, who also seeks to beat Thailand in terms of rice export.
Therefore, the second half of the year is very interesting. We have to look closely for Thai rice exports as everyone wants to see whether Thailand can become the #1 rice exporter again. So ASEAN 1 had contacted Kun CHAIRIT, DAMRONGKIAT, Director General of the Rice Department of Thailand, and with him we had an exclusive interview on Thai rice production sector and of course the collaborations that the department is working on with ASEAN member countries.
So let's start with the general question. How many farmers are there in Thailand?
There are now 3.7 households, which are accounted for 15 to 17 million farmers approximately.
Are there more or less than the past?
I would say that the number of farmers in Thailand remains the same, and the rice growing areas do not increase. Moreover, most of Thai farmers are over 50 years old. They are in the old generation.
Right. So what about the rice plantation areas? Is it still the same when compared to the past?
Earlier, there were around 57.8 million rice for in-season rice fields and 8 to 10 million rice for off-season rice fields. But now, there are over 60 million rice for in-season rice fields and around 16 million rice for off-season rice fields. I would conclude that the number of rice growing areas are increasing. I would conclude that the number of rice growing areas is increasing.
And there is a report that for the first half of the year, India has become the world's #1 rice exporter and Thailand ranks the second. But it is expected that Thailand will not maintain its second ranking because of Vietnam. What's your view on this?
Let me inform you that Thailand ranks the first for 33 consecutive years in terms of rice export. And Thailand has the most leftover rice from domestic consumption when compared to other countries. In fact, India can produce more rice than Thailand, but because of its higher population, it consumes more rice too. And I was informed that this year, India released rice in the stock kept in case of possible food crisis in the country, making its rice export volume for the first half of this year higher than Thailand. Talking about Vietnam, I would say that the country decisively aims to export more rice than Thailand. It also uses Cambodia as a production base. However, I think we cannot conclude anything in the first half of the year, as Thailand still has more rice to release. I am confident that at the end of the year, Thailand will become #1 again.
And the price of Thai rice is much higher than our rivals like Vietnam or India, which also affects the export volume of Thailand. So what's the reason that makes the price of Thai rice higher than other countries?
The price of rice has become Thailand's major problem for long because Thailand produces high quality rice. I would say the world's best aromatic rice is produced by Thailand. And for white rice, Thailand also produces the high quality one used for making steamed rice, 100%, 5% or 10% white rice. Because of its high quality, the price is high. Another factor is Thailand's production cost, which is considered high when compared to its rivals. So, I think these two factors result in the high price of Thai rice, and we focus selling our rice in premium markets.
One of the major issues that have had impact on Thai rice situation and farmers involves climate change and the greenhouse effect on rice production. Faced with these issues, Thai farmers need to prepare themselves for the new situation.
In order to retain its status as the world's largest rice exporter, Thailand also needs to increase the efficiency of its production. Now let's see how the department actually gets prepared for possible impact caused by climate change.
And now let's jump to a different story. There has been a concern about climate change in the future. For the rice department, do you have any plan to deal with the issue?
I think climate change is one of the big issues in the future. The rice department has prepared for years because we think that the most important factor that affects productivity and quality of rice is climate change. It becomes obvious as we can see that there are too high temperatures, too low temperatures, or floods. This starting affecting rice productivity and quality as well. Particularly, we are very concerned that if the weather is too hot or too cold, some varieties of rice will not pollinate appropriately. Other than that, we will see new resistant kinds of pests and blight. But the rice department has prepared for these problems by conducting researches, especially on rice seed development in the future. We are developing rice seeds in preparation for the climate change. We believe that the rice that we develop can resist any kind of threat. I think we are prepared already.
Right. And there is also one suggestion for rice department to come up with the strategy for the rice farming to use least water and release lowest carbon dioxide. What's your plan on the issue?
What are we doing with International Rice Research Institute, or IRRI, is the project to grow rice using least water. And we are now working on it with our staff too, because we believe water shortage will become more severe in the future. So, how we can grow rice and use least water is one of our researches we are working on with IRRI. Another issue is carbon emission from rice production, which is believed to create greenhouse effects. I actually think it is a very little impact. But we try to conduct a research for rice growing with least water. Setting rice growing system is another thing we are doing, as we want to keep the soil in rice growing areas dried. This could reduce carbon emission.
Right. And Thailand Development Research Institute said that one of the disadvantages of Thai farmers is because there is a limited amount of rice farming areas located in the irrigation areas. And the government doesn't seem to well manage the water to ensure enough water for farmers, because they tend to put their focus on pledging scheme for agricultural products. What do you think?
The problem of Thailand's irrigation system and rice growing is quite big, because our irrigation system actually covers only 30% of agricultural areas across the kingdom. To be specific, it covers only 10% of agricultural areas in the northeastern region. It, of course, affects rice growing because rice growing and the source of water must go together. So, If this problem persists, it is difficult to increase rice productivity. I would say water management is a temporary solution, but it would be great if we could find sources of water and expand irrigation system to cover most agricultural areas like in Vietnam, whose irrigation system covers 80 to 85% of the agricultural areas, almost 3 times more inclusive than in Thailand.
Rice research and development is one of the main obligations of the Rice Department. We will come back after a short break with more details on what the Rice Department is doing to develop and improve Thai rice. Stay tuned.